Hey, good morning. Good morning. I'm up here with a little Mr. Jim's coffee from the foyer there. Seems like I finally got over my cold or whatever that was, coughing for like a month, but now they tell me it's allergies. It's January. What in the world? But anyway, so we'll keep a little fluid up here. Hey, on that financial planning university, if you've never done that, if you don't run your household by a budget and you have some plans and your future, here's the deal. I knew nothing about financial planning. My parents didn't teach me. I didn't get it in college. I got a master's in finance and knew a lot about markets and businesses and management. Nonprofits, nothing about personal finances. Should I have realized it? Sure, I knew not to spend more than you make. We kind of had that down, but start early. I wish I'd have started in college. Okay, we started a little later. I did. Teresa's very frugal, so thank goodness. But if you can start early, someday you might want to have a house. Someday and own it. Someday you might get old and want to retire. But if you start earlier, it's so much better at whatever level. And you can dig out of the hole. It's just, and this is just such a simple way to do it. I like how he puts it at first. He goes, okay, here's a plan. I'm going to advise you to do this, this, and this. You don't have to do it. But your method's not working if you're in debt right now. So why don't you try somebody else's method? And so, it's like, well, here's my method with this many data points, and here's method with millions of data points. So it's a wonderful program, learn a lot of stuff. We are way down the trail on planning and using it, but you get an app with it that's a real simple, easy to use, flexible budgeting tool you can use. You can pay for it the next year, but your subscription, that $80 we're paying, you pay $20. That will get you the app. You get online to the videos for the classes and beyond. So there's a lot there, and it really, really works well. I highly advise it. I learn some stuff every time I lead it, and I hope you will try it. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of things I've noticed, but I have noticed a few funny things recently. The funniest to me is I'm seeing people run around in vests with what look like weight on them. And I checked it, it's like a big thing. A bunch of Christmas gifts, they're buying spending money for weight on your shoulders to run. Um, After the service, if you talk to any of us have been in the military, cop over there, Mike back there, myself, talk to us about wearing weighted vests and what it does to your feet, knees, hips, spinal cord. All of us have permanent lower back damage. I have new hips. So, okay, there's a point for you to walk in a weighted vest. I get it. I don't know why you would spend money for this thing. I mean, steel plates are pretty cheap now. Just get one that'll stop a bullet if you're going to wear the thing. Is my practical side, depending on where your park is. But yeah, don't hurt yourself, really. I just found it funny. I just found there's a price to be paid, and you will pay it. So that was my humor for the week. You can laugh, you can not, but okay, we're in Genesis. Abraham the Faithful, easy title for Abraham. When Eric assigned this to me, he probably would have picked something similar about faith. Okay, so the first part of Genesis is kind of 1 through into 11, is before history, the creation of the world, right? And so Genesis, the first word is beginnings in Hebrew, and Genesis translated into that, some transliteration going on. So it's the book of beginnings. And it talks about the beginnings, and that's good. We look at the beginnings, and nobody's around to write it down or record it at the time, so here we go. Some people that don't believe the Bible is as literal or as inspired as I do would call it prehistory, but yeah, it's before we have, like documents and stuff. So you got that, and then at 11, especially 12, with the story of Abraham, we begin the scripture story of redemption. Redemption, right. Buying us back, bringing us back to God. And God never lowers his standards. He can't. It'd be against himself, right? He keeps his standards, but he pays the debt we owe to our sin and rebellion through Christ, through himself, to bring us back into relationship to him, okay? So this is where it starts It won't be fulfilled until the cross and resurrection. I used to just say cross, but the resurrection is a big part of that. So when I do my little symbol for cross, for the cross, I do the cross, but I also do a little loop up, dead, and now he's up, to remind myself every time it's cross and resurrection. And so this begins the story of salvation, of redemption. And we're going to begin that with Abraham. So we're going to be in Genesis 11 as we pick this up today. Eric covered Adam and Eve and Noah and about walking with God and what our sin does to us. And Noah, all of them, with all their flaws and failures, God still uses us. Okay? God never fails. We fail God, but he keeps bringing us back if we're willing. So to begin with, let's just do a quick marriage illustration about faith and faithfulness. So I had faith in Teresa. Right? I had faith in her. Faithfulness, I'm going to use that as acting on my faith. So I can believe in her all the time to be a great wife, to be a great partner, but until I marry her, act on that faith, we really haven't committed, have we? And so for today, I'm going to kind of use faithfulness as the action of obedience. So when we married, we are placing our faith in each other, and that becomes faithfulness. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. And we even came up with a little thing that you can use. I haven't talked about it for a long time. Kelly, remember Kelly? Okay. Kelly was our code word for our relationship. So we came up with a name, and it's gender neutral. Kelly. A guy or girl, whatever. So Kelly was our relationship. And so when somebody says, hey, do y'all want to go do whatever, or this, or that, and especially if we're in public and we can't just go talk about it, we would sometimes go, do you think that's best for Kelly? Like, I might want to, but she might not. She might want to, I might not. We may both want to, but it's not best for Kelly. So that was kind of our code for, really, Kelly is more important than Brad or Teresa. Right? So that was to help us stay faithful to each other. So you could use that if you want to use it. So Abraham the faithful. Let's talk about our goals for the day. Here we go. 1, we want to live a righteous life, and we want to be a blessing to others. All right? These are the lessons I'm going to pick up today out of Abram. To do this, you need faith and faithfulness, obedience. So we want to live the life. Righteous would be right standing before God. So we want to live a life that honors God. And we want to be a blessing to others. All right, those are our goals today. And we're just going to jump on in Abraham's life. Remember the setting for Abraham the faithful. We'll just throw that name up there for right now again. And the life setting is the ancient Near East. They lived differently. All right, some of the things we're going to see today, some of them are horrid. They're terrible. That's how they lived. It was just different. It was acceptable. It's tribal. And Abraham, he's got a lot of wealth. Okay, he got it from his dad and then him. And he is a tribal chief. He's the leader of a large group. Okay, he's influential. He's the guy in charge. Actually, tribes had more power than the cities, what cities they had. And then the little areas out in the country and communities. Some of the cities got to be pretty big, and then you would have a king or a pharaoh or whatever. But pretty much, they had to get agreement among their leaders, tribal kind of concept. So ancient Near Eastern thought, even if we go, that's terrible, that was okay for them or not, or whatever it is. All right, so keep that setting in mind as we go through. And we'll just kick it off in 11. So it begins, really, Abraham's move starts with Terah. So after Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abraham. So there's his dad, Nahor, and Haran, okay? Now, this is the account of his family line. Terah became father of Abraham. Nahor, Haran. Haran was the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran dies. Okay, so we're gone. He's in Ur of the Chaldeans. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. She will be Sarah. Abram will be Abraham later. And we continue on. The name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. And we just consider. Now, Sarai was childless because she was not able to conceive. Sometimes you state the obvious, right? She couldn't have a baby. She was childless. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, and wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years. He died in Haran. So The journey Abraham is going to be on was actually started by his dad. And I have a map of that, and we'll throw that up. So he started off down here, they're in Mesopotamia, all right? And so he begins the journey to what we would call modern-day Israel today, all right? So now this is way back there, folks. This is over 4,000 years back there. And I'm going to make a political commentary right now. When you hear the stuff about return to Palestine or Palestine back to not Jews, so there was kind of nobody, some people floating around, some little cities, various groups, but the first major influence in this area is going to be what we now call the Jews, the Hebrew people, all right? So that's 4,000 years ago. So that's just a political thing. All right, they've been there a long time. But how far did he make it? Haran. So, but he began the journey. Sometimes we see in Scripture, God is working with people way before we even realize it. Dad moved out. Dad is being led to get this move going. And he brings his son along as we continue this story. So here they go. And then God said, go, and he goes. Now, there's no GPS. There's sort of maps. There's mostly just telling you what it's like. So he is seriously heading into the unknown. And he's a lot of wealth. There's a lot of movement going on here. This is a large group, as far as like a tribal kind of setting. And they begin this move. And this is key. There's this promise going on. We're going to be going. So he does his move. There he is. And then we're going to keep going. The Lord said to Abram, go from your country. Go from your country, your people, your father's household to the land I will show you. So he's made it part way, and now he says, keep going, basically. And then there's the promise. God says to Abram, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. So not a tribe, a nation. I will make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. To all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. And this is beautiful. The next part is just so strong. Here's the promise, the blessings. And it says, so, and in a summary of what was just said, Abraham went. That's obedience. That's faithfulness to what God said. You got to act. You can believe all you want. A lot of times you just got to act, right? Abraham went, as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. So, I guess I didn't mention this, Teresa. We were in this passage. I didn't mention that in about 6 years, God may lead us to another land. It could happen, right? I tried this once before, a number of years ago, when a buddy offered me a job near a ski resort in New Mexico. Some of you know this story. Teresa goes, baby, if you want to go work for him, you go ahead. I'll be here with the grandbabies. So God's going to have to tell Teresa at the same time, I think is how it's going to happen. So there's a call, there's faith, there's an object. Who's the object of our faith? God. We keep thinking our faith is in ourselves. Our faith in God. My faith is in my faith in God or something. I don't know. But God, give me more faith. And that's a valid prayer request. That's okay. How much faith do you need per Jesus later? How much faith do you need? Mustard seed. It's so tiny. Flake of pepper. That much faith in Almighty, I created everything. God is enough. Our faith is in God. Here's the thought. Faith without action is just reflection. I made that up. You can keep it. Seriously. Faith without action is just reflection. It's just philosophical thought. I believe in God. Hey, that's real nice. Are we obedient to action? So, where are they going? We don't know. Isn't that great? So, dear, where are we going? I don't know. Why? God told us. Well, let's go then. And here they go, to the unknown. And it is unknown. Honestly, all of this is kind of unknown until Jesus Christ filled it all in the cross and the resurrection. Get it? There's a lot of unknown, but this begins the process. Here's the great drama of redemption, R.K. Harrison would call it. So let's show you a different map. I kind of like this just because some of the detail looks different. Not this one, the one with all the buildings and stuff. There it is. Okay, this was kind of cool. So, the perspective's a little odd. But in Ur of the Chaldeans, you got Babylon, you got some major, major cities here. But again, it looks big on the map, but they're just a city in the desert. There's a lot of space out there. So they begin their move, and here's Nineveh. They get to Haran, okay, it's a major area, and they're going to keep going, and their target is down here in Canaan, in what is now modern-day Israel. A little later, they're going to make it a little bit farther. Those of you seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's Tanis, okay. So they can get down to the edge of Egyptian-controlled property later. That's some more of the drama. So they begin, so Abraham's starting from here, they're moving down, and you can see there's some major cities for ancient Near Eastern standards. They're not anywhere near the size we would think of as a city. But mostly there's just a lot of blank. People, farms, little villages, tribes, that kind of stuff. Okay, a lot of nothing in all that too. So as we take a look at that. So, and the Nineveh, you get on down there into Canaan, especially the southern part, it's very dry. So they're heading down that way. Well, so we have that going on. Well, what happens very soon after he's in the area? There's a famine in the land. And I'm in 12 and 10. Now, there was a famine in the land. And I keep grabbing on this mic, aren't I? I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess. Oh, it's just going to happen today. So many pieces of equipment. Now, there's a famine in the land, and Abraham went down to Egypt to live there for a while. Why? Because the famine was severe. One theory on that from ancient Near Eastern writers and archaeologists, they hadn't been in the land long enough to establish cisterns, large water storage areas. They'd been there long enough to get some deep water wells and springs, but they couldn't store enough water to make it through a really bad dry season. That would be the theory from archaeology. So they haven't been there long enough to establish. They're going to travel on. They're about to enter Egypt when Abram says to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is my wife, then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and then my life will be spared because of you. Abraham, you slug, that is horrible. I mean, okay, him moving is faith. Good for you. This is not. In a minute, I'm going to conclude it's a failure. He flat out lies. I don't know what his thinking is, and we do that when we fail, don't we? We lie to ourselves. We say, well, look, I'm going to die anyway, probably. I'm sorry. You're going to be the wife of the Pharaoh. You're going to be in the concubines or something because you're so beautiful. He's just going to grab you. And they're going to kill me if they think you're my wife. So let's just say you're my sister so they don't kill me because you got to go anyway. I would guess that's the convoluted logic from looking at the passage. You study it yourself. I'm making this up. But anyway, he just flat out lies. He says, yeah, no, that's my sister. Oh, wow, we're going to take her. All right, yeah. There we go. You just, disgusting. So he gets to Egypt. The Egyptians saw Sarah's beautiful. Pharaoh officials saw her. They praised her to Pharaoh. She was taken to the palace. He treats Abraham really well. Oh, yeah, gives them sheep, cattle, male, female, donkeys, male servants. He's still a slug. And camels. I'm not impressed with Abraham right now. But, this is hilarious. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and said, what have you done to me? Don't you love this? Okay, Pharaoh, he's not like following God or something, but apparently he can put one and one together. Okay, we were good until I got this Sarai, and now we're bad. Oh, I am going to talk to this guy because I think something has happened. All right? So he goes, what did you do? What did you do? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she's my sister so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here's your wife. Take her. Get out of here. See, now he doesn't want to tick off God, I'm thinking, right? So he's not going to kill him. I just want you to go away. And I'll send him away with everything I've given you, your wife. Just get out of my territory. So off they go. I'm calling that one a failure. Abraham totally failed in his faith on that one. I mean, God led the biblical writers to share everything. Good, bad. They don't hide the hero's weaknesses. God's still going to use them. You know what? We fail. Keep turning to God, folks. Now, chapter 15, as we continue on, I'm going to skip over a lot. That's chapters 13 and 14. That's for your study. I'm just for time's sake. 15 is God's covenant with Abraham again. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abraham said, Lord, sovereign Lord, I'm childless. I mean, the guy's going to get my estate as Eliezer of Damascus. Says, you give me no children. So a servant in my household will be my heir. But the Lord said, the word of the Lord said, that man, Eliezer, will not be your heir, but a son who's your own flesh and blood. Now, Abram's really old. And they knew enough about biology that you don't have kids at that age. He says, look up and count the stars, if indeed you could. So shall your offspring be. And what does Abram do? He believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. That is a beautiful, beautiful phrase there. That's our goal, folks. To be credited in our faith and our action, our obedience to God, that we are righteous. If you put down this person was righteous on your tombstone, well, others put it down. And you've got a life well lived and known. And there he is. Faith. Faith in the Old Testament theology, is the only correct response to God. That is the presupposed answer. Faith and obedience. Anything less is a failure. Now, back to my marriage illustration. We have had and will continue to have challenges to our faith and faithfulness sometimes. We fail each other on occasion. Yeah. In marriage, you got to learn forgiveness and restoration, right? To each other. Our faith in God is different in that God is, was, will be always faithful. God never fails us. He is always faithful to himself and his actions. We fail him. Righteousness in the Old Testament is action. God-pleasing moral conduct. Abraham believes God. It's counted to him as righteousness. So it's actually his faith acted upon as belief. Yep, I'm going to keep trusting God, which is an action. I'm going to trust you, God. I'm going to follow what you're saying. That counts. So the story continues. That's a win, right? I'm going to call that one faith. Well, as we continue on, we have a failure in chapter 16. Now, Abraham, we have another section 15 I didn't cover. Abraham, he asked God about it, and in verse 9, he says, bring me a heifer, a goat, a ram, each 3 years old, and a dove and a pigeon. He cuts them up, he lays them out, and as the sun's setting, Abraham falls into a deep sleep, a dreadful darkness. God gives him an insight on what's going to happen to the people later with their being enslaved in Egypt. And then I'm going to pick back up in 17. When the sun had set, the darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. Wow. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham. So he keeps reinforcing this covenant and said, to your descendants, I give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, to the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites. There's a lot of zites here, aren't there? And the Jebusites as we continue on. So he reinforces that covenant in the sacrifice. But now we're going to have the fail. 16. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abraham, the Lord has kept me from having children. Let's blame God, right? So sleep with my slave, perhaps I can build a family through her. Abraham, I'm sorry, but man, it's another one of those things, you slug. So he agrees to what Sarai said. And after Abraham had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai took his wife, anyway, he slept with Hagar. Trying to get a lot done in a hurry. So he did. That's horrid. It was acceptable in the ancient Near East. And in fact, it was part of the law structure. If you can't have kids, it's going to go to a relative. But if you have a kid from one of your slaves, that can count as your kid. You raise them as your kid, and that can have the inheritance. So that was an acceptable practice legally and culturally. Still wrong. And the thing is, he knew. He knew. How many times have God reinforced his covenant? How many times? He just told them. And just like hit it with this incredible fire pot, whatever that was, and flame in the sacrifice. It's going to be your kid. He's just really, really old. They have a lack of faith. They have a lack of patience. One of the biggest struggles to our faithfulness. We can believe God. But trusting God's timing. Wow, that one's tough. Okay, how long? So, they have this child. Abraham's 86. He's old. But he knew this wasn't God's will. This is a fail. Consequences? Yeah. Slave mom gets jealous. There's hostility. There's a lot that play on. That's for your study. Hey, you have to accept God's timing in our faith too. This is not the same a little bit. So Teresa and I were married 9 years before we had our first child. I don't know, somewhere around 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5 in our marriage, Teresa really wanted to start having children in there. We couldn't have children. We started looking around a little bit on adoption and what goes on and long time. But then in year 9, we had our first child. And then boom, boom, boom. I mean, at 3, really fast. Teresa was that one with, 1 in her arms and 2 in the cart. And it was a thing. Patience. Now, looking back, the simplest answer is their dad needed to grow up. But patience. Hey, let's keep going. So in chapters 17 through 19, we have the covenant work of circumcision, Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm not going to really hit on that. I am going to touch at the first part just a little bit. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him. I am the God Almighty. So we've had him in his 70s, his 80s, now his 90s. And he says, I'm God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and blameless. All right? So do your faith. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will increase your numbers. Abraham fell face down. And God said to him, as for me, this is my covenant. You'll be the father of many nations. You won't be called Abraham anymore. Now, Abram, he'll now be called Abraham, meaning father of many, probably, okay? And the whole land of Canaan where you reside as a foreigner will be your everlasting possession to you, your descendants after you, and I will be their God. You will be my people, I will be your God, will be a rallying cry for the prophets as we continue on through the Old Testament. And so there it's reinforced. Isaac is promised. If you look down in 15, God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you're no longer to call her Sarai, you will call her Sarah. I will bless her. I will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her. Abraham, he falls down. He questions again. He's laughing, going, really? I'm 100 years old. Yeah, are you kidding? He said, how about Ishmael? He says, no, not Ishmael. It's going to be you. So God reinforces and restates this. It's going to be your son. Okay. So as we continue on, like I said, I'm going to skip Sodom, Gomorrah, great stories, great lessons. But in 21, now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant. She's like 90. Dad's 100. Okay, so I'm 69. I don't want another kid. We haven't even gotten a puppy because we didn't want to have a baby in the house. I mean, I'm just saying. But I don't have God's promise. I don't have the covenant. It's a different situation here, right? If God really wanted us to have another kid, all right, great. We'll do a great job. But that's not for us. Find out what God's got for you and follow him. Do it. They have a baby. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When he was 8, he circumcises him. Abraham's 100. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham and Sarah would nurse children, yet I have borne him a son in my old age. In that ancient Near Eastern culture, and later on you'll pick up this, even among the Hebrew culture later, that not to have a child is like not to be blessed by God. What did y'all do wrong? Why don't you have children? Blah, blah, blah. But I remember, while we don't have kids in various churches, people, you all got kids? No, we don't have kids. We actually had a lady in the hallway between Sunday school classes trying to tell us how to have a kid. It was awkward. Very awkward. This grandma, like, oh, we're good. We kind of got that part. No, can I go now? Just so worried. Sarah lived with that for 90 years, feeling like she's under a curse. And there she is. And he's born. Now, chapter 22, this is the last part we're going to hit. This is a big part here. Sometime later, God tested Abraham, and he said to Abraham, Abraham, here I am. And God said, take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Wow. You think God tests us? Our tests are nothing compared to this one. It's all on this. How much do we trust God? How big's our faith? Right? Do we really trust God is big enough to handle anything? Anything. Will we stay loyal and faithful? Now, again, ancient Near East, this was an acceptable sort of process. If it was a bad enough circumstance, okay, well, let's start here. In the ancient Near East, they believed they could manipulate the spirits, the gods, and make the spiritual world work for them. And later, you know how you pick up in Greek thought, the gods are kind of separate entities, and they laugh and mess with us. Well, there's some of that going on, So let's manipulate the spirits because I need a good harvest. Because we haven't had a good harvest for 3 years, and I'm afraid my family's not going to make it if we don't have a good one this year. And so you sacrifice, and they would sacrifice something valuable. If it's a big enough deal, what's your most valuable thing? In any family, even ancient Near East, a child. And this occasionally happened. I mean, you would hear of a sacrifice to Moloch, okay? Satan. Satan had him screwed up. I mean, he did. And so this was something that happened. How that affects his mindset or whatever, but God said, you're going to do this. And in his culture, that was a extreme, though valid option. So early the next morning, Abraham got up and he loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants, his son Isaac, cut enough wood for a burnt offering. He set out for the place God had told him about. He's acting. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering, placed it on his son Isaac. He himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went up together, Abraham spoke up and said to his father, Father, now he's big enough to carry all this wood, all right? So he's a young man, whatever. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. Fire and wood are here. Where's the lamb for the burnt offering? I mean, he's seen offerings before. He's grown up around it. They've worshipped. Aren't we missing the offering, Dad? He's probably kind of getting the idea that, something ain't looking good right now. Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place that God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there, arranged the wood on it, and bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. I sense Isaac's trusting Dad in this. I'm kind of reading into that a bit. There he is. When he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son, then he reached out. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham, here I am. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Before I finish the good ending, sometimes God calls for us to be patient for a long time. To stay the course of the faith, the living we're doing right now. And while we want something else, or maybe he's told us it's going to be something else. And it can go a long, long time. And it looks like it's never going to resolve. Never going to happen. Or it may happen and you're not going to make it through. It's a test of faith. Abraham has a huge test of faith here. Are we all in? Now, as I look back, God has always come through. Have I ever been angry with God? Well, yeah. So if you're angry with God, what do? Talk to God. Yell at God. Check the Psalms. Yell at him if you have to. He can handle it. He knows how you're feeling. Talk to him. Struggle with him. Yell. Scream. Ask. And then listen. A lot of our prayer time is we tell God what God already knows, honestly. My prayers tend to be a lot simpler nowadays. Say I'm asking for whatever it is, resolution to something. God, give me wisdom for this. And then what we typically do, because now there's nothing, right? I mean, I feel like I need to put in 15 minutes of prayer. I've spent 3 minutes, made my request. What do I do with the other, 12 minutes? Well, typically we'll quote God, right? God, you have promised. God, you're the one who fulfills all. God, you're all powerful. God, you said if I call in faith. And, we're like, actually what we're doing is we're bolstering our faith. It's kind of what we're doing, aren't we? And that's fine. Knock stuff out. Just know we don't manipulate God. We don't have to tell him who he is, what he's promised. He already knows all that. And we know it. So I'm going to give you a suggestion. State your case to God, whatever it is. Whatever he's led you to worry about or ask for or need or the goal that he has for you. Say, God, I feel this is really where you're leading us, and I want to go there. Show us the way, open the doors, whatever it is. Or an answer. Or someone's hurting, and the concerns we have for family and friends. And God, heal this. Help them. How can I help? Whatever it is. Then I'm going to recommend that you just quit talking. You got 12 more minutes for your prayer, 15-minute prayer? Listen to God a little bit. Just listen. See what he has to say. Be assured he's there. How about you just become aware of it? We talk so much, we don't know he's there. It's like we talk over him. We watched the biography on the show C.S. Lewis. It was really well done. I liked it. Kind of paced, but at one point he talked about in the afternoons when he was older, high school student kind of age, he would go for a walk, and they would have time and conversation. And he said, walking and talking do not go together. Walking should be in silence so you can hear and really appreciate everything around you. I think he spent a lot of time listening for God. Now, he did say reading and eating go well together. And it just kind of struck me. We're always talking over God. Just listen. Keep learning about God's faithfulness. Absolutely, it does bolster our confidence. That's wonderful stuff. Just know we don't manipulate God. We ask him. We talk to him. We listen. And God will respond. And he does here for Abram. Abram looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place Abraham's place of faith. No, we tend to give ourselves credit for stuff, don't we? Yeah, we try to brag on ourselves somehow and how faithful we were. What does he call it? The Lord will provide. Gives God the credit, not his own. And to this day, it is said, on the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. God provided a substitute. Someday in John 1 and 29, I think I have that passage for you. We have this. John the baptizer, he's out preaching, calling for repentance, returning to God among the Hebrew people. And he saw Jesus coming toward him and said, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." This will be fulfilled. We see this God providing early in Abraham until the ultimate provision of Christ. I'm going to give you an interpretation thought. When you interpret in the Old Testament, don't read things into it. I remember years ago, I'm in seminary, I think, and someone I very much respect and trust, and a great fellow, but he said, "Man, I see Jesus on every page of the Old Testament." And I remember thinking, well, that's kind of nutty, because he's not in every page of the Old Testament. Now, if you mean like God created and God the Trinity, there's Jesus, okay, I get that, fine. Or Jesus and John, I was there at the beginning. Yeah, we learn more. But what we sometimes do is we jump on to later parts of the story and the fulfillment, And we miss the meaning. We like dilute what's going on right here with Abraham. This is a ram God gave as a sacrifice. And actually, to keep me from doing that, I'm probably too conservative. I let the New Testament tell me when I need to see a fulfillment or a later a New Testament Christ, something like that, in the passage. I let the New Testament tell me when it's there. So I'm probably too conservative, but I just try to be very careful. Because what do we have here? We have a guy who didn't hear Jesus. Didn't know anything about that yet. Messiah concept isn't even around. He's just trusting God who says, go from home to a place you don't know, and I'm going to give you a kid in super old age, and it's going to establish a nation that later we will learn is a light to be a light to the world, to introduce God. Okay? That's all he's got. And he's in an old culture where they tried to manipulate the spirits and the gods, and they were always struggling and wanting to make it happen, and they didn't know, and it was unknown, and it was tough to live, and if you didn't have enough food, your family died that next year during the winter or whatever, and it was rough, it was hard to live, and he's got this big tribe, and he's responsible. That's all he's got. And now a God who is introducing himself as the God to everybody else says, here's what I want you to do. And then he gives them the child. I mean, after all this struggle and worry and just failing to keep trusting, and he's old, he's 100 years old, and he finally gets his kid, and now his kid's growing up, and he's big enough to carry the wood for a sacrifice. And he says, now I want you to sacrifice your kid. I mean, honestly, I'm thinking, what more do I have to do? Think this. You really want to worry about something when God gives you a big challenge? I'm thinking Abraham might think a little later, how hard is this establishing a nation going to be if I got to be that dedicated? It just could be. God is saying, you're going to have to step up. We are still in two-a-day practice. We haven't even gotten to game season yet, right? We're still getting you ready because you think this is hard, trusting me to give you a kid. Man, I created everything. Nothing. Running a nation with all the yahoos you got running around in your family? Dude, this is nothing. We're just getting ready for game time. So next time you go through a struggle and you're running out of patience, you don't know if you can bear it anymore, just think God has got this. And I don't know what's next. But if I'm going to worry about anything, I'm going to worry about how big that next project is. But with God's help, we're going to make it through. Whatever it is, whatever challenge, your family, your company, your people, your school, decisions, whatever it is, stay faithful. God will be faithful. Stay righteous and faithful and act on it because God comes through. Don't miss the value of what's not there in this passage. He doesn't have the rest of the story, and he trusts God in this. Is that not an example for us? I'll call this one faith. Faithfulness. Let's look at our goals again as we'll finish this up. What do we want to accomplish today? We want to live a righteous life. That means we act out our faith. We live God-honoring lives. And we want to be a blessing to others like Abraham. God gives us all the opportunity to do those two things. To do this, you got to have faith in God. And you got to be faithful. You got to be obedient. So even when it seems bleak and tough and hard and I don't know how I'm going to make it, trust God. Do God-like, God-honoring things. And then later, when you can look back, praising God for how it all worked together. Or maybe you look back and you still don't know how it's going to work together. I don't know. We'll know in heaven, right? And then we won't care. Great irony. Because we'll be in glory. But God's going to work and it's going to happen. Like I said, why did it take so long for us to have kids? Well, I think the answer was pretty easy when I look back. Because Teresa already had one kid. Now it's amazing. Life can be challenging. Keep living for God. Keep being a blessing to others. Want to get your mind off your problems? Help somebody else. Grandma told you that probably already. Keep the faith. Be faithful. God, may we learn our lessons from what you have shared with us in your word about Abraham. And we thank you that he did remain faithful. And we've all been blessed through the nation that you created through him. May we too keep the faith, stay faithful, be a blessing to you and a blessing to others. In Christ's name, amen.